Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 5th episode of Beyond the Current Situation. My guest today, Dr. Stephanie Rimka. She is a holistic brain optimization specialist focusing on integrated neurotherapies to identify and also address the root causes of mental illness, learning disorders, and also chronic illness. She's dedicated over 25 years to learning the best practices in functional medicine from masters in their fields. And Dr. Rimka is actually she's active in private one-on-one practice, and she's teaching online courses, which are fabulous, which I'd like to hear more about. And she's leading healing groups in different retreats. And let's just get started. Let's get ready for a very powerful download, and help me welcome Dr. Stephanie Rimka. Welcome, Stephanie. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's lucky number 5.
It's totally 100% lucky number 5. I won't ask your whole background story, but just quickly in a couple of sentences, is there something specific that maybe led you to this holistic practice?
Oh, there's probably a whole lot in there. I'd always planned to be a doctor. So I was kind of a poor kid in Detroit, city of Detroit. And, there's not many things that you hold on to with a child decision of how do I get out of the ghetto? And pretty much doctor, lawyer, engineer, right? That's what I saw in front of me. Like, those are your choices pretty much to get me out of there. And I was very aggressive in my academics. I saw every grade as potential dollars coming in. So that's how I approached school. I was a little bit maniacal about it because that was my path to get out, needing scholarships and everything like that, right? So as I'm in undergrad, getting my bachelor's, I broke my back in a soccer incident. And in a soccer game incident. I was in a game and I scored, but it was not pretty. So I'd actually been getting adjusted from a chiropractor when I was 16 years old. I had a soccer injury, actually. I played more sports than soccer, but that's the one that hurt me the most. And it just, long story short, the way I was being handled with traditional medicine in a multitude of ways was just failing me. And through that experience of what my chiropractor did to me, I had massive changes in my emotional and psychological state towards the positive, and I couldn't understand it. And so when I started telling him I asked the question, why am I so much happier when I'm getting adjusted? Because I would just go in for pain and then leave when I was out of pain. I would use him like a Tylenol, like everybody else, most people do, right? And I was a kid, so he dealt with me lovingly. So it was through a very powerful conversation that he had with me about what it was doing in terms of the neurological system of perception coming in, motor response coming out, and how that was affecting my emotions and why it made me feel that way. And I just it just was an instant shift. And I said, oh my God, I have to not go to medical school, because I was debating between orthopedic surgery or pediatric psychiatry. Well, I ended up being a chiropractor that specializes in mental health. I specialize in schizophrenics and bipolar, and I actually just won Atlanta's People's Choice Awards 2020 for Best Mental Health Practice in Atlanta as a chiropractor who does neurofeedback therapy, among a bunch of other things, genetic testing and functional medicine, and beating out psychiatrists and the Amen Clinic. I couldn't even believe that, but it's really showing that people are craving a holistic view into structure and function and structure, and how it all really goes together. And you cannot ignore the body, the mind, the emotional state, the trauma. I look at all of it. I look at the energy field. I look at, pranic healing chakras. I look at genetics. I don't see how you can address anything without doing that. Certainly when it comes to psychiatric and other emotional instabilities.
Yes, I so align with this.
Yeah.
You have
no That's idea. What happened to me. It's a longer story, but
I'm sure. Yeah, but no, I so align with this, and I don't typically like people to just take out their old stories all the time. It's like, we're in this moment. So you answered perfectly.
There's many pieces of it, but that's a big part of it.
Yes, there are. Yeah, I love it. And I'm definitely 100% in line with this, because even based on my own life experiences and, my awareness to self, if you will, what I found that, optimum health was for me, or what it required, was that integration of these three things.
Yeah.
How we care for our physical body, how we nurture our spiritual self, and how well we connect heart with mind, right? And what are your thoughts on that? It sounds like you're kind of in line with that as well. Because
absolutely. I mean, it's all a part of the proper self-care. People aren't really taught how to love and nurture themselves from a very young age. We're taught a lot of distraction techniques and ignoring techniques and things like that. So, and medicine is about as partitioned and compartmentalized as you can get. So we you may have heard these terms before. There's a mechanistic point of view of life and health, or a vitalistic point of view in life. And so I really get, if I'm going to get irritated, I'll get irritated with the concept that vitalists are called alternative therapists, where this has been around at least 5,000 years for most of these practices. Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese, at least 5,000, could even be much longer, but we have 5,000-year-old texts. Like, that's vitalism. This has been around about 100 years. And yet this has become the dominant way we do things, where we just cut things apart. We see them as very separate systems. Nobody's really talking to each other. The kidney guy doesn't talk to the brain guy, doesn't talk to the heart guy, doesn't talk to the colon guy. Different drugs are given, and nobody seems to be looking at all of it. And the vitalist, which is what I am, really sees a person as bigger than the sum of just those parts. That there's some type of divine spark also within there. There's something within the field. There's some energy in addition to all these systems and all these little parts. And perhaps the parts are not just what you say they are. Perhaps the heart is not just a pump that pushes fluids around. That's a really simplistic point of view as to what that powerful thing is really doing. And you talk about the heart and the brain being connecting, like, it's a critical thing. It's so critical what we know. And I do a training called biofeedback in the office, looking at heart rate variability, and we control the heart rate through breath, through emotion, and through breathing. We can control a factor called coherence that we can measure and track, which affects brainwave states, right? So people just don't understand, because they aren't taught, because their physicians aren't tracking this and they aren't telling them. And it's a simple technology that costs somebody about $150, and they can do it at home for 10 minutes a day. And they're going to have tremendous cardiac outcomes from doing that. But why isn't their cardiologist telling them, right? So that to be said, I'm a vitalist.
Love that.
Along with acupuncturists and Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic physicians, right? Osteopaths are kind of getting swallowed and devoured by traditional medicine. So some of them are vitalists and some are not, right? So it's trying to take, I try to take all the benefits of modern science and technology and things we use to biohack, and different devices and machines and biometric tracking ways we can do things, and couple them with really ancient primal ways that we've been healing for thousands of years, as well as looking how our ancestors 40, 50,000, 100,000 years ago used to do things. What was normal human physiology before we perverted it with modern lifestyle? And how do we attain that level with this modern lifestyle that has perverted us in our connection to nature? So there's a lot about primal connection to nature, which automatically puts your body in the harmony. You don't have to think about it. Your body knows exactly what to do if you give it the right environment to do it. Unfortunately, we're running out of the right environment on Earth at this point.
Okay, completely, 100%. And this is really, I think, this is really the way of the world if we want to really stay healthy and just really, live life longevity is this way. And I think that many years ago, I might be dating myself, but many years ago, it used to be called Eastern medicine meets Western medicine.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
okay? Because I'm
They
older
say
than
that.
you.
I don't know. I
Shush.
don't know if it gets said too much anymore. It probably does.
Do you know who got me on that kick first?
Pardon me?
Andrew Weil.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Andrew Weil. I started, picking up his books, and
He's a popular one.
yeah, and that was like back in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah. There were a lot of pioneer. And it's tough. I'll tell you, you have people who've been the salmon against the stream for a really long time. And then when a traditionalist, a physician, comes over to our side and they start talking about it, and now everybody thinks it's some new thing. I'm like, he's not saying anything everybody else hasn't been saying for 5,000 years.
I know.
But okay,
It's so true. It's like,
but he's an MD, and clearly they're the only ones who know anything. They've only been around for 100 years, but okay. And not to say I may sound like I'm bad mouthing. I work with a tremendous amount of physicians in practice. We work together. I can't do everything. I don't want to do everything. You need a team. And I work with very specific trauma specialists that help me with the emotional aspects, with some very specific dissociation disorders I deal with. I work on the part that I work on, and we work with a functional medicine and or sometimes psychiatrists where we can help modify and titrate medications. I have my role and they have their role, but when we work together, everybody knows what's going on and everybody's doing what's in the best interest of that person. That doesn't go on in traditional healthcare right now at all.
And you know what? That's a holistic approach, isn't it?
Huge difference. Yeah.
That's a whole holistic approach, though, like a 360-degree holistic approach to helping people heal is exactly what you're doing.
Right. But here's the thing. You can't do that in 10 minutes for a $15 copay.
Absolutely
we can't do it that way. It just doesn't, you can't even, the physician, any doctor cannot take in that much information, really try to, you are not a set of labs. You are not a couple highlights that happened in your life. It takes a long time to get to know you, to get to know what we're really looking at, to get to look at all the numbers, and then talk with each other and say, well, this is what I'm thinking from my lens. I have a professional and clinical lens that's based upon brain function. It's based upon neurofeedback, based upon QEEG, brain maps and labs. And it's based upon, I don't believe in the normal lab standards that medicine has come up with. I believe there's an optimal range that they're ignoring, and they let people get pathologized, and I move towards optimum. That's my lens. I have a filter of trauma and understanding that with patients, and I work on that. So that's my lens. So when I talk to a hormone specialist, they have a different lens. I know about hormones, I deal with that too, but I'm like, they're going to see a pattern different than me. When I talk to a geneticist working on the case, they talk about it in a different way. So I deal with epigenetics, but they look at it. So when we all come at it with our professional filter, we really can come together in a non-competitive way with no ego, with the patient's best interest at heart. And it's a really beautiful thing. And I found that anybody who's in any type of integrative functional field, we've all had to spend all this time and money out of our own pocket and our own life to do this, that everybody is happy to say, wow, I didn't think of it that way. Yeah, why don't you do your plan? Let's try what you just said for a while and see what happens. That's the kind of conversations I have with the docs when we're like, this is what I think. What did you see? What did you want to do? Yeah, actually go with that plan. Let's see what happens in a month. And that's what patients deserve. And that is not what they're getting. You have a very small, select handful of people who are in a position of privilege because they have access to the information, they had education of some sort, they knew the right people, and they have the financial resources. And I'm doing everything I can to try and stop that from happening. My private one-on-one, like I said, we can't do that for $10 copay. I've never even taken health insurance in 20 years because I don't want to play that game with the health insurance dictating to me what I'm going to do to a patient. I'm not playing that.
I take my hat off to that.
Yeah,
I'm so relieved to hear you say that. I know it's not easy.
And you never have. And you'll find the best people won't. And it's interesting because you have old school people like my mom who say that freaked her out.
Of course it did. Of course it did.
It makes me feel like it sounds like you're not legitimate. I went, oh, that's it. Right. So to her, if you have a license, you take insurance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but
like,
that's the way. That's
they
the
pay
old.
me cash. And I don't play that game. I'm
Yeah.
not in a relationship with an insurance company.
Yeah.
I don't want to have one with my own, to be honest. And I look at that, it's only trauma care because I don't even use my
Yes.
health insurance on
Yeah.
myself. I pay cash at all my practitioners basically because they don't pay, for wellness or prevention or optimal. They don't do that. And
Yeah.
I hope to change that. I hope if every doctor that keeps trying to come up with this. So it's why I do some really affordable courses to try and teach people to simply empower them the way you've become empowered. Most of us had to kind of get sick or have a sick child or a sick parent, and we've been fighting the system, and they've been doing it alone. And that's why you have a legion of like autism warrior parents, right? You have these communities, these subcultures that have been created based upon their need to fight to get basic care, basic reimbursement, basic support, somebody even believe them about what's happened in the system from something, right?
Yeah.
And the more we can educate everybody, they can be more empowered and have really full medical consent, full disclosure, so they can make decisions. I'm like, you guys, you can make whatever decisions you want, but you should have all the information and not be being sold a lie. Like that's what really matters, right?
Yeah. Totally, 100%. I couldn't agree more, and I'm glad that this subject came up actually. And speaking of empowering, I do a lot of empowering, but I also do a lot of just um, real legit coaching, whether it's personal or relationally or business, whatever that is. But I want to ask a question because many times there's a lot of things that come up, and then we wind up spinning into doing like a Reiki session because I'm a master Reiki, because I do energy healing. Mm-hmm. So what I wanted to ask you is, as a holistic brain optimization specialist, and I know that you work on, I think you're specializing in these three areas, and correct me, if I'm wrong, but those three pillars where there's either learning disorders or mental illness or even chronic illness. So what I was curious to know was what, if any, common denominator do they all have, if any, as far as the root cause, if any? Mm-hmm. And because otherwise, as a life coach, I couldn't help but wonder or be curious if emotional well-being plays a role in any of these, if not all.
The mind is what wounds and heals the body entirely. So emotional trauma, unresolved conflicts is absolutely at the cause of almost all of it. Yeah. So every autoimmune diagnosis is based upon an emotional problem, emotional unresolved, some type of, it doesn't mean if something's happened to you, if you've had trauma, just because you have trauma doesn't mean you're going to have a problem, right? It just means it's this unresolved stuckness that kind of happens. And again, it's why dealing with this physical reality of the somatic body matters. It's why so many of these somatic healing modalities are really important. It's why just blah, 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 talking with a therapist, as much as I love that, and I refer every day and all day, and they refer to me every day and all day, they understand, the ones that work with me, it can't just be that, because actually sometimes the repetitive talking alone just keeps ingraining it neurologically and makes it bigger. We have to clear that out of the body. Trauma, emotions are locked in the body. They are chemicals. It's Candace Pert, PhD, Molecules of Emotion, is probably one of my favorite books of all time. She's one of the greatest researchers that ever lived. She's no longer with us. She's the person that discovered neurotransmitters. I think everybody should know that name. You know what serotonin is because she discovered all of it. And she worked for the National Institutes of Health. Her books are amazing writing about this. And she writes it from a woman's perspective with a very holistic way of looking at things, because women, that's what we can do. We can look at things in a much bigger way. That's just neurological fact. It's just what we are really good at, right? We got a bigger corpus callosum. We integrate better. Just, no shame into the men, right? But so she writes about it in such a beautiful way that helps get you on a starting point towards this journey. But the emerging field, which she created, was psychoneuroimmunology, right? So you're looking at psychology, neurology, and immunology. They are intimately connected. That is primarily what I do in practice. Even though I'm not a psychoneuroimmunologist, I'm actually interviewing one tomorrow morning, right? Because this is what you do with neurofeedback. If I'm going to be measuring brainwave states, I'm going to be looking at what the function and structure of a brain is. I'm measuring neurotransmitters levels. I'm looking at hormone levels with panels, and I'm adjusting, you have to understand what inflammation in the gut is doing to inflammation in the brain. You have to see how it all works together. But at the core of that is typically, I'm going to find these unresolved emotions almost consistently. Certain disease patterns, we know what that is. This pattern is that. I just actually went to a conference on it probably 2 months ago, and that was the entire thing about emotions and how they cause wounds. They control your immune response. You want to make somebody really sick, shame the living shit out of them.
I totally agree.
Take a child and you shame them. You take an adult, you shame her. You take an old person, shame that shit out of them, they're going to get sick. Because you've just destroyed. It goes so far beyond cortisol. When people talk about that hormone, we have all the immunoglobulins and there's many inflammatory response chemicals that gets released. The body sees shame as if you're punching it in the face, and it releases an inflammatory response as strong as if somebody physically traumatized you. It is the most violent and aggressive thing emotionally you can do to yourself or someone else.
Yeah.
So knowing that, you can also use these antidotes. So it's of emotions to heal them. So it's why talk therapy with really good, I don't think they're all the same, really good trained therapists who have very specific techniques that are clinically proven to work towards that pathology. If you have OCD, you need to see this type of therapist. If you have a personality disorder, you need to see a different type of therapist. You have a relationship issue, you see a different type of therapist. Every type of therapy is not the same. And people who fail at therapy, it's often because they're seeing the wrong, that's not who you should have been talking to, because that's not what they do. They're very different techniques for different lack of integration of emotions. And you need to be able to have, the food helps balance some of these emotions. That makes it easier to do the work, right? So we want to stabilize. You want a stable brain, stable neurology, stable chemistry. So it makes it easier to have your body and your brain and your emotional state flow towards a peaceful way, not trying to, like you're trying to use therapy or affirmations while you're in a typhoon of emotions. If you're eating like crap, junk food and sugar and poisons, it's going to be a whole lot harder to stabilize you, but it's why energy work of all kinds of sorts matter. Breath work matters. Movement modalities matter. Body work matters. It all has ways of tapping in and finding a lock and key access to that imbalanced, unresolved emotion that's been stuck. I do a whole series in my one of my courses, in my 3R course for women, and I call it the Prisoner of Your Neurology series. I think it's four videos where I do 3 videos about the prisoner of your neurology, and I explain emotions and neurotransmitters and how that pattern from trauma gets locked in, like why some women are not getting the weight loss results they want. And I relate it to trauma, and let's talk about that. And then the 4th video is an interview with a DBT therapist that I work with locally that's a trauma expert. And we just kind of have a professional conversation that people get to eavesdrop in as to why some of the women that have more weight resistance, despite doing everything right, because they're thinking it's all about just food and exercise, and they just distract themselves with that because they never really want to relate the rape at 5 years old to why they're 300 pounds today.
Yeah, I love that. I do. And because, one of the things actually, I don't know if you know, but I was nicknamed by actually a radio host, the locksmith to the heart.
I read on your thing. I thought it was really cool. I didn't know you got that. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful,
Because that kind of my approach was always, even if I was, let's say I was career coaching someone, it always wound up being such truth that the whatever is blocking you from really reaching like your highest potential or your highest performance in anything, there's always something that's just like stuck, like so really unlocking you know, those blockages. And so it was hence locksmith to the heart. So, and I really love that you talk about that because, you know, look, people talk about emotional baggage. That word is so trendy, you know, for 10, 20 years, but really it's energy that's blocking us. It's energy. And, you know, another thing I wanted to ask you, because, you know, even ultimately, even with coaching, you know, I wind up leading clients into a healthy lifestyle, even if that's not why they first came to me. But, and this includes the understanding of fresh air and, you know, how we breathe and what we're breathing in and the water we drink, the food we eat, the quality of sleep. What are your thoughts on all of these? I'm assuming.
Well, I have a whole like foundations of health that I go over with people that I'm like, I kind of give this analogy that, you know, the human brain is fascinating and we're so smart. We like to really sometimes outsmart ourselves and make things sometimes way more complicated than they really need to be. And I liken it to building a house. I've renovated houses and I think it's fun, but a lot of people understand maybe a house that there's a foundation. You know, the contractors have to lay a really good foundation and they build a frame and they build out the rooms and then you build on the second story, right? There's a natural progression. If the foundation is not good, the whole house can lean one way or something could fall apart or there won't be stability. You won't have that. A lot of times, some of your clients, I'm sure, go through this. A lot of my patients do it. They're asking me questions about the third story bathroom mirror. They want to know, they want to pick out the mirror. And what that means is like, they want to know about which B vitamins to take. Okay. Because they're tired. Well, shouldn't I take B vitamins then? Or I had a lab and it said cholesterol. So I read this. So shouldn't I take this pill? What? And so I go take back the basics where I'm like, we need to talk about air, water, sleep, movement, sunlight, right? There's a foundations for health that none of this matters if you're doing this. I don't care. You cannot out supplement not sleeping. You can't do it and you're delusional, and I will not sell somebody a bunch of pills or lotions or creams and let them think that's going to do anything to compensate for the fact that they sleep 3 hours a night. That's a complete lie. And if any doctor is doing that, they should lose their license. So nobody wants, it's not sexy to talk about sleep. It's not sexy to talk about light. It's not sexy to talk about air and water quality, because most of this at the end of the day is pretty damn free for you once I teach you what to do. You know, I'm not going to make a ton of money on that. Okay.
Yes.
It's not. Now I could run $5,000 on labs if I wanted and find some weird thing way over here. Oh, you're deficient in 4 things. So take these. Really, like maybe they just, you know, like, so you have to have a good foundation. You start there. And most of the time you do that, a lot of these things will self-correct themselves. And so, sorry, my dog is distracted. So we start with that. It's critical. It's an important thing. And sleep is one of the primary things I address. You can't do a whole lot of healing if you aren't sleeping. You know, you talk about that you work on a lot of the heart, the locksmith of the heart. It's beautiful, right? It's a beautiful analogy. And this is a key to a lot happening. But in the end of the day, this doesn't matter if somebody doesn't have the first level of safety handled. Right? So you can't address this if we don't have housing, food, you know, think basics of safety. No one's life feels in danger. So we run through these different parts of the body, which have different systems, whether we're dealing with safety, and that's our feet and our legs and our sexual organs, whether we're feeling about it's power, it's love, it's expression coming from the throat. So you work your way up from the bottom on different layers of empowerment. And, you know, it's like, you know, psychological terms, we would have a hierarchy of needs that we talk about. So you can't talk about philosophy with somebody if they don't have food. You're not going to have a philosophical dissertation. You're not going to ask that person to raise their consciousness. They're starving. They're homeless. Let's deal with safety first, right? You can't talk about love and connection if they're still hungry. So, but then they certainly can't have transcendental expansion of their consciousness if their heart is locked down. They certainly don't know how to express themselves and communicate honestly with their loved one if they're still clamped here, because there's no energy moving here. So it's all part of a system and a flow that, you have to make sense with. So yeah, I'm big in my courses. I teach in my master's course. I go over water, air, sunlight, at a atomic level. I go into physics. I go into electromagnetic medicine. I get into the physics behind a lot of what people don't understand about their body. You are an electrical being before anything. That chemistry comes from your electricity, but most of you don't,
Yes.
I'm sure you know that or not, right?
Yeah.
We are electricity, and that creates magnetic pulses, right? That's who you really are. And it actually makes you a sound wave being of light. Most people don't understand that. They don't want to think. I'm like, all those glowing images and halos and all this spiritual stuff, that's real. You just can't see it.
Yeah.
But just because you can't see it doesn't mean somebody else next to you doesn't.
Exactly.
Babies see it. You'll notice really enlightened, like open people who've been given Shaktipat or other things like that. Babies can't stop staring at them in public because they see the glowing.
They see the
And
glowing
it's
before
from
they're
raising, we get that killed off, most of us, over time, like that's not real. And to fit in a culture, and not feel like you have a mental illness, you don't want to see those things.
yeah,
Right?
and
It's
as
an
they're
interesting
growing.
thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes with some of my patients, I have questioned, I'm like, are they schizophrenic, or are they just really tuned in? Like,
I talk about that in my book, Truth to Triumph. I make an analogy between that and schizophrenia. I just can't believe you said that. That's so.
Sometimes, I've been to many powerful spiritual healers that have worked on me, and you leave and you're like, either she's a genius or she is fat shit crazy. I don't know, but I paid her money, and I'm going to go with she's a genius. But she talks to a lot of people and a lot of things.
Yeah, that's so funny.
And they make it work for them.
Aligned with
You know what I mean?
that.
So I don't know. You know what I mean? It's kind of like,
Mhm.
remember the movie A Beautiful Mind, the book about the mathematician, and how, it's an interesting thing. There's a lot here in the ether. So anyway, yes, air, water, light, sleep, it's critical. I go over that with all my patients. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes you to teach them breath work. Nobody likes you to go through sleep protocol. I make them all go through a 30-day sleep protocol hygiene with me. But
it's important.
It's critical.
It's critical.
And you know what? It's fascinating that I can give like a solution and it's going to cost the person $50. I could give another solution that's going to cost you $3,000. Because there's a higher value exchange on the big dollar, the mind attaches to this is going to work. They think sometimes the simple things that are free are not going to work. And it's a tough thing to try and figure that out in practice. But at the end of the day, there is no amount of technology that is going to replace Mother Nature. And the earth and her water and her air and her sunlight and her rhythms and her movement is what's going to keep all of us in sync. It's what's in putting your heart in sync. It's in training your brainwave into its frequencies. And if you are connected to it, everything feels very different. And we're becoming more and more disconnected. And we're seeing more and more evidence of disconnection and disarray and chaos because humans have left, their natural connection of understanding nature. We actually have learned to to be disgusted by it. We're over sanitizing now to a point I'm terrified watching where the human species may be heading, may be taking themselves into such a severe artificial robotic implantation. Like it's
yes,
happening
I agree.
before our eyes. And
I agree.
It's concerning.
It is concerning, not to mention the lack of like the immune system just breaking down. Everyone walking around with masks and gloves, and everyone's
talk about
home.
Shame. That's the most powerful thing. But shame is another form of fear, right? So these 100%. Are going on so strong. You are having a constant flooding of the body of fight or flight responses. The body is not designed to do that. It is designed to be like, there's a lion. I'm either going to get away or I'm not. Exactly. So I'm either afraid for 30 to 60 seconds or I'm dead. You're not really in that much pain for that long. It's pretty fast. Okay. You either get away. So a tribe comes to you, you're going to kill them or they're going to kill you pretty quickly. You know,
Yes.
this doesn't go on for hours. This is not how the human body is actually designed. Cortisol and these inflammatory responses keep you alive. They're genius. They're powerful. They make you strong. They're why women can lift a car off their child magically and be like, I don't know what just happened. Yeah, it's called chemicals.
Yes, it's
We
called
can do some
chemicals.
bad stuff with our body.
Yeah.
Now, if you have that same feeling and response just going to the grocery store, that's a problem. If you have that for 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day, even 2 hours a day, it was designed for 30 to 60 seconds. The chemical should have been burnt out of your body physically from some physical movement, from a run, a fight, you know, like there should, or death. It should be done. Well, we live in that state chronically, on and on and on. It's tearing people apart, and we become really desensitized to pain and misery and a low level of health. We think it's normal. And so it was, well, that's just everybody's stressed. Stress is normal. Really?
Yeah.
Is
Really?
it? Because I'm pretty sure if you drop yourself into a tribe of Aboriginal people right now, they're not stressed out.
Yeah. Yeah, you could just look at the birds outside or the flowers. They
Yeah,
don't
and we have
toil,
all
they
the studies.
bloom.
We have anthropologists that have done this. We have great records from Weston A. Price and other people who went and visited all the Aboriginal tribes, and they didn't live in a state of chronic stress made up of mental things that were just imaginary things that might happen. You know, it was either it happens or it's either there or it's not.
You're stressing over something that hasn't happened. So really, you're upset about an illusion.
Yeah.
And you're putting all of your energy and letting that empower you. You're letting something that isn't really there empower you. I mean, how ridiculous.
We're powerful manifestors. We are manifesting all the time.
100%.
A lot of people are doing it unconsciously and under no control. Yeah. That's the problem.
That's where it gets scary.
You have to understand. You have to be taught. I mean, it's why visualization is a key component to my courses. I teach people how to do it. You have to do it. I make them do it every day. But I teach them neurologically why. So I get it to the point, I think, where they finally go, I can't believe I haven't been doing this. And I was a victim to it too. You've been hearing, you know, like, but when you understand it, what it's doing neurologically, how it's changing the reticular activating system of your brain, how it's changing your filter of perception, how it really changes your reality. It changes lots of things physically, then how it's changing things energetically. It becomes, I'm very clear with them. I say, if you are not doing this, if you don't love yourself enough for 3 to 5 minutes a day to do this, you are clearly making a choice and telling the universe, I want a hard, painful life. Then that's up to you. If you are wanting to have a hard, painful life, I can be of no help to you.
Yeah, 100%. And if you're taking those 3 or 4 or 5 minutes and you don't really know what it is that you want, like you don't have that vision, like you need to be crystal clear.
It's easy. We start, we start with baby steps. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody has a huge, they go, it's okay. Like
tiny vision.
We start with anything, right? Yeah. Some people, I know my why, I have my big things. I've been at this a long time, but I'm like, okay. Sometimes it's like, they'll say, well, what is it you want right now? They're like, I would love to have the money to put a new garden in my backyard. Great. Visualize it's done and you're out there enjoying it for 3 minutes every morning.
Yeah.
Just
and
do
what's
that.
in your garden? What is in your garden?
Yeah, and then they start to see it more and more. And I go, cut out pictures, play with it. You know, like, so they start to like, oh, I'm like, find pictures on the internet, find magazines, go to the nursery near you, look at what you want, make a board, look at the board, close your eyes and do it for 3 minutes. You know, use a song. So I teach them, like, start there. And as you practice, and again, what you practice grows, right? That is true of everything, but just from a straight brain pattern, functional network, neurological basis, what you practice grows. You practice optimism, you're going to be a badass when it comes to being optimistic. You practice being negative, well, you're real good at it. Good for you.
Yeah, right? Of course, we can master something that's not good.
Practice. So if you look at something, you say, God, I wish I was like that. You can be. You have to practice, and you just start a little bit, and you just redirect that mind to look at this. And, you know, I have Post-it notes all over my house with affirmations. I got, you know, like you're working on something like, wow, that's a thing. That's really kind of holding me back. It's everywhere. They're on every door, every mirror. I put Post-it notes on what I'm working on for that week or that month. And every time you see it, you just read it. It's as simple as that. Some people think it has to be complicated. Put Post-it notes.
It's so
Put
true.
an alarm on your phone. Every hour, write down or say those 3 affirmations of the new thing.
Yeah.
I am healthy, fit, and strong. I have, you know, I have more money in my future than I have today. Whatever it is you're working on that's stressing you out, my children are safe and living their best lives, you know, like
Absolutely.
whatever. So you have to turn it over to repetition to change what's happening in your brain, and then your brain sees that. So it's an interesting concept, visualization, that people don't understand how powerful it is. And I get it, because I resisted it as well. I hired people and went to courses and paid mentors. And when you hear the same thing finally said, you go, okay, if one more person tells me I need to go home and visualize, and it was, for me, it was all about clarity. I knew how to visualize. I wasn't trusting myself to be specific enough. So some people just need to start, and start anywhere.
Anywhere.
And I'm like, yay that you started, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of resources all over YouTube. You're a resource. I'm a resource, right? We can teach you how to do this. And it's a process, right?
Yeah.
You grow with it. You know, when I started meditating, it's different than 20 years ago. I do it differently today. And I have the rhythm that works for me. I like malas. I like chanting. I like Sanskrit. It's what I like. I make a suggestion because it's a form that works for very busy minds like mine. You know, focus concentration meditation works really well for really cognitive, active people. It gives us something to do, right? And then we can drop down.
Yeah.
So people don't want to do it right. So, oh, trust me, if you do this, you got a rosary, do that. You know, like whatever. And it just, you know, some
Whatever
people
works for you.
That's okay. You know, that's why there's so many options, and you play with it and you decide what you like and what works for you. And what works for you today might not be the thing that works for you 5 years from now. And that's a good thing, right? People need to be okay with that. You grow. I'm not doing the same thing I did when I was 20.
You just took the words out of my mouth. I could not agree with you more.
Because
we go through different, because we go through different cycles in our life.
And that's
There's
beautiful.
Different universal cycle. Of course. Like something that was good for you when you were 3.
Yeah.
It's not good for you when you were 10.
Right.
You know.
And that's actually what what the emotions, bringing the emotions and emotional healing is the reality. What I'm sure you've seen with your clients is that many people are making decisions from when they were 3 and 7 and 15.
Right.
And I have to tell people, I'm like, should you really be making that financial decision at 50 based upon a decision you made when you were mad at your dad at 13? Because that's what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
So if you don't heal these moments, you get stuck and you're making decisions based upon a child. Most of us, you know, the unconscious scripts are given to us by the time we're 2 years old. 1.5 to 2 years old, you have all your scripts on life. Your family scripts are given to you. This is social psychology 101. You just absorb from your family dynamic decisions about men, women, yourself, the world. This is how it is.
Absolutely.
Now, you can change those things through different things that happen, but a lot of people don't realize these were given to you by your parents. Some of these decisions you made yourself, but many of them were just given to you. You've just been doing the same thing your family's been doing for a very long time. And then you had things happen, then you made decisions, and you make decisions based upon a child. Like that's what I described what I was going to do for a living. I made a decision as a child. Like doctors are respected. Doctors make money. I will become a doctor to bring respect and money to my family.
And there you go.
Now, is it what I was supposed to do? I think so.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? Like,
I do know what you mean. 100%. And it's funny how we even came across meeting each other because I heard you talking about skeletal muscle. So skeletal muscle. It's a huge deal, right? And it's one of the reasons. Deal. Yeah, it's a huge deal. Yeah.
It's a huge deal. You know, it's interesting because I wasn't taught about muscle in this way. And I'll give the shout out to Gabrielle Lyon, Dr. Lyon. She's a physician in New York, and she calls it the organ of longevity. I think she coined that term. I'm not totally sure, but skeletal muscle really gets a real short end of the stick. People just think about it as kind of being pretty, or they think about it in terms of when it gets hurt or when you have fibromyalgia, when you're in pain around it, without understanding it's actually the largest organ in the body. People always say skin, but it's really not. It's really skeletal muscle. That whole thing works together, and it is the controller of your metabolism. It's the gatekeeper of all your hormones and how that goes into your brain and how everything gets metabolized. It's pretty much, we all need to think about it like, gold or platinum as far as aging. As the muscle goes, you age faster. You have a lot of muscle, you don't really age. I hate to tell you. I mean, age is a lot of cultural mindset. That's a huge part of it. It's not really as much determined as people think it is. It's a very cultural thing. And I'm interviewing somebody tomorrow to talk about that. But the muscle, like you muscular people, like you will never find somebody with Alzheimer's or dementia that's ripped and muscular. They don't exist.
So then I have hope. I'll be 58. I'm 57.
Okay.
And one of the things that I've always been very focused on was making sure that I did the things, whether it was eating or, hiking or walking or overloading my muscles or whatever, always made sure that I was like, I had skeletal muscle.
Yeah, it's huge. Women don't get trained as much. I was one of the rare people. I was just talking to my friend about this. So I'm close to 50. And so when I started lifting weights, I was in college, and it was very unusual for a woman to lift weights. And we were just talking about this, like I was the only woman in my college weight room. And all the guys, I was with the football team, and they loved it. They loved that I was in there. And then women started coming to me saying, when they're all doing their treadmill, their little Stairmaster, that was the big thing, Stairmaster, for hours. And I was like, I don't have time for that. I like to just get it done, hit it hard and get it done. Right? Run. How fast can I run a mile and quit it and just lift some weights, throw heavy things around? I prefer that. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and the men, they would say, well, I'm so intimidated. Can I go in? So I started personal training all these women in college. I had no certificate, but I was like, I had a book and I was learning how to do it. And the guys all told me, my professors, we all lift. It was amazing. And
I love it.
What can happen to your body so quickly. But women, there's a lot of myths about weight training and muscle and cardio. Like I am not a fan of cardio in any way, shape or form, other than if you're playing a game. I played college basketball and college soccer. I love sports. I love that. Those are all sprint work. Most of these things are really like HIIT training, where it's a lot of explosive work and weight training, and it's a very different physiology. Lifting weights is, to me, lifting heavy things. I like to say that because I don't care if you're throwing logs around your backyard. I don't think you have to join a gym. I think you need to do work. What people used to do, dig some holes and plant some things and cut a tree down. You're building muscle all the time in that. And that's the most important thing as we age, is to be building muscle. And you do it, muscle happens in 3 ways. Strong hormone signals. Well, when you're a kid, you got strong. A 15, 16-year-old boy can eat pizza and chips and they're going to build muscle, right? It's hormone signals. Well, as we age, those hormone signals change dramatically. And I do a lot in my courses with my patients around hormone optimization, hormone replacement, hormone signaling. I try to get hormone levels back. I have hormone levels more like a 25-year-old. And I intend to keep it that way because I intend to keep it this way.
Yeah.
I want to do things. I have a 14-year-old son and I'm trying to keep up. And I actually need to start hitting it harder because I'm like, I'm not going to be able to keep up soon as he hits full puberty, and he's going to outpace me. And I want to be able to ride my bike and box with him and do these things that he's doing without being like, oh Lord, your mama's getting old. I don't want to say those words ever. I don't want that to be some excuse, right? Yeah. So you have hormone signals, hormones being strong when you're young, and then we can use optimization, homeopathy, and even replacement or peptides to help with those signals to keep them strong.
Yeah.
Diet. So you need a bolus amount of protein, 30 to 50 grams of whole complete protein. You're not going to get that from broccoli and beans. You need animal meat. You're going to need a whole lot more if you're trying to do it vegetarian, but you need that signal to create muscle building. And so that creates a hormone signal as if you lifted weights.
Right.
And then there's the heavy weight. There's explosive, hard work where you're doing something that's hard on the body. It's like, wow, what the hell did you just do? That hurt.
Yeah.
And then you sleep. You have to sleep.
So that you can rejuvenate.
It builds itself to repair. And it says, what if she does that again tomorrow? We should probably make it stronger so that doesn't feel that bad. That's what the muscles do. They're like talking. I personify every part of my body. It makes it so much better. So I talk to it. I talk to my muscles. I visualize my muscles. I was in my sauna this morning, and that's what I do. I see myself and talk to myself. That was like me lifting weights.
Yeah,
and I didn't actually lift weights, right?
But it's true. It's 100%. You're overloading the muscle. You do need to regenerate that sleep and repairing the muscle.
Yep. I just happen to have a lot of patients, and I went through it myself with mold, biotoxin illness. So I have a lot of chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, Lyme, mold patients that they can't just work out. I can't just say, hey, well, let's get you back on. I mean, it's a really bad situation, and their level of pain and fatigue is so severe that I have to use food. So meat signaling, mTOR signaling with that, and supplements and hormones. It's my first avenue, sometimes for 6 months to a year before I can get them back into physical activity, right? And then their physical activity still has to be tempered a little bit different as we're healing, right?
Of course.
So it's very, very different than talking to a fit 25-year-old if I'm dealing with a 68-year-old fibromyalgia patient, right? Yeah. Who's avoided the gym now for 20 years or 30 years.
Yeah, and understandably so. Yeah. I mean, I definitely get that, being in,
but I have to build that muscle. That's a critical thing.
Got to build that muscle.
I help them get results until they're ready, and then they'll feel it. When you start to get there, I said, you just wait. I said, when you want to start throwing stuff around, that's when you're ready.
When you're ready. It's
you'll
true.
know.
You'll know. You mentioned two things that I'm just highlighting now in my brain. Is one of them about the hormones and the growth hormone, because one of the things about the skeletal muscle being such a huge deal, that was one of the reasons why I actually started using the HGH gel and even becoming a distributor. And then you talked about amino acids, and it was one of the questions that I wanted to make sure I asked you. What isn't it, the amino acids that we get just from protein from animals?
Well, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it needs to be, yes. I talked about a whole protein or an incomplete protein. So if it doesn't have all the amino acid,
Because I feel that personally, like I've had a history of studying food for a long time, and and even our emotional behavior toward food. And as a professional, like a ballerina and a dancer, and then I was in the gym business, I have seen every diet and every trend under the sun come and go. I've even tried several of them, right? I mean, some of them have gone and come back with a different name. Please, I can't even tell you, but So I was even a vegan once upon a time. Yeah. But today, what I firmly know is that you need those I think it's acids or peptides.
Amino acids, They're the
amino acids that you could only get from an animal. Sorry, vegans. And I'm not vegan bashing. I'm just feeling that for optimal health, you need that to grow those muscles the way you need. So
they're called essential. So they're called essential amino acids. So you got to, like, when it comes to the macronutrients, which we would call protein, fat, and carbohydrates, we have some proteins. They're little like Legos. So you put a bunch of Legos together. Each Lego is an amino acid. You put a bunch of those together, it makes a peptide. Put even more, and it's called a protein. So that's what that is. Some of those are essential, and some are non-essential. Non-essential means we can make them, but some are essential, meaning our body cannot make them. If you do not eat them, you will not have them. So then if you don't eat them, you will never be able to make all the proper peptides and other subproteins that need to be made, because you're missing. You have to substitute and figure things out because they're essential. Fats are the same way. We have some essential fatty acids and some that are not essential. We can make most of them, but there's certain essential fatty acids, again, only present in animals, essential, only present in there. Now you can take carbohydrates. That's a whole other thing. None of those are essential, by the way. There's not a single there's no subcomponent. So the only things we have to eat are fat and protein, by the way. So just from that point, then, I was a vegan for 12 years.
You were too. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. 14 years vegetarian, 12 years vegan. And so most of my recovery is still probably dealing from what that did to my body for such a long time. Yeah. But I'll give you an example. I just wrote a chapter for a book about longevity. I'm in a compilation book with the world experts in longevity and about aging well, about age rejuvenation and aging well. And in all that research, and I'm part of one of the things I specialize in with epigenetics and looking at how to unlock the codes into being 150. We're looking all at this now, right? And all the different ways, and how to combine primal living, ancient ways of eating with all these amazing different substances and chemicals and devices, right? It's an interesting balance of what's about to happen in the world and how we blend these things to stay human. And what is that going to mean? What is the human 2.0 going to be? I don't know necessarily, right? All that to say, there's a unique, in the longevity world, centenarians are people that live over 100. So when you study centenarians, and people have done this, I'm interviewing one of them tomorrow, one of the experts, there is not a single vegan that's centenarian.
Yeah.
They don't live over 100. It's a complete myth that vegans live longer. They don't. It's absolutely not true. And none are over 100. And there's no indigenous culture ever on earth that's been vegan. There's no second generation. We don't have any of these second and third generations. You can't replicate. So it's unfortunate. I get the movement. I get it. I get where they're coming from.
Yeah.
But the reality is my job is to study physiology. My job is to study the human system. My job is to look at what have humans done for hundreds of thousands of years. How did we get to be who we are today? Where did we come from? How did we get here? How are we optimized in the past? And how are we going to be optimized today and in the future? And without a doubt, animal protein is king.
Yeah. So, thank you for underscoring that. I appreciate that.
There's nothing, and the mental health comparisons, there's no comparison. Everything clearly shows to get mental. I actually, a few years ago, decided I will not take vegans into my practice any longer unless they're willing to change, because they're asking me to change the structure and function of their brains from a pathological state and rebuild it. I don't have the substrate. I can't. Your brain is an animal. You're animal. I'm an animal. I am animal protein and animal fat. That's 100 and minerals. That's what I am.
Yes.
Only 2,000 calories of carbohydrates called glycogen. I am almost all protein and fat, animal protein and animal fat. My brain is 70% fat, saturated fat and cholesterol. You only get that from being an animal and eating animals. So it's really easy to turn this into that from a steak. Do you know how hard it is to make this from broccoli?
I don't think you can.
It's obscene. The amount of chemical reactions, the amount of enzymatic reactions, and with in digestive enzymes, and with every moment, every passing month and age and year of age, as well as stress levels, your digestive enzymes are lower, your enzymes all over the body are lower. It's really asking a lot. And if you have to have a book with, humans are the only animals on earth that need 14 books to know how to eat. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Really, the lions sit around on the plains and they're like, these people are so stupid. They're thinking the bill is like somebody trying to kill them. They act like they need, if you need an app to know how to eat, you really need to take my class, because I can't understand it.
Seriously.
You don't need food combinations and metrics and tracking and data. I'm like, but that's what people are doing now. They've turned a basic biological process into 18,000 books. And I'm like,
I know.
This isn't rocket science, actually.
Yeah, everyone's looking for this also, not just a quick fix, but this secret. But yeah. I honestly, just to really underscore what you're saying is, I really feel like it's innate.
It is if we
No,
allow it to get
you know
really
exactly.
perverted. We do and we don't. I mean, to be really clear, like
Okay.
children, everybody knows until we pervert them. So that baby knows what it likes. So you take a 9-month-old, I had a baby, you had a baby, you put them in a high chair, you give them broccoli. They all spit it out. They all hate it. You give them some bacon and they're all happy, right? We train them to deny what their taste buds are telling them and eat things that they hate. Then we give them cake and frosting. And now we've taken a palate that thinks a strawberry is one of the sweetest things it's ever tasted. Like it's an explosion of sugar in its mouth. And now you give it a cake from Publix.
Icing. Yeah.
You've destroyed the palate. Now that strawberry is perverse to it and it needs Oreos and ice cream and cookies and candy, because now rice isn't even sweet, which by the way, if you let rice dissolve in your mouth, it should taste sweet.
Absolutely.
It's sugar.
Yeah.
But see, if you've perverted your taste buds, just like we've perverted our senses with constant onslaught of television and shows and media and blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
How is anybody supposed to ever connect to themselves? They're so disconnected from,
Diet is 80%. Wow.
No, I so agree.
Wow. People, so yes, I believe in, I want people to be connected to their intuition and their innate intelligence again.
If they were
I
connected.
think they're all jacked up. We have to remove a bunch of garbage and bad scripts and trauma and poison. I mean, if they're walking into my, you're walking into my office drinking a chemical concoction of like bright blue sugar, high fructose corn syrup, artificial whatever drink, and what? Like, I'm supposed to trust, well, I just trust, I was craving chocolate. So does that mean I need magnesium? No, pumpkin, it means you're a sugar addict and we need to go through withdrawal.
No, it's so true. Oh my goodness.
But if you want to keep justifying it, knock yourself out because you Googled that it means you're low in magnesium. No, honey, that's not it.
You remind me of me. That's too funny. Stephanie, I don't want to take up too much of your time.
I know, yeah. You people are like,
woo! So thank you for supporting me and my podcast. How may I support you? What are you working on these days? And I love that you're collaborating on this book, which sounds amazing.
Yeah, that'll be out in November. We have a summit. I'm going to tell you my battery's about to die.
Okay, so how can my listeners support you?
I'm drrimka.com. And I have on there, you can learn about my courses. I offer online courses. I'm really pushing those hard right now. They're really awesome and it's a great value. I offer retreats. It was a horrible time to start running retreats with COVID, but we will be doing the first one next year. It's a South African safari. And you can learn about those. We have a couple other ones that are in the works, but that'll be the first one I do next year. And I have a lot of products that I support, ranging from blue light blocking glasses and red light panels and various supplement stores. And there's one-on-one care. I have a very long wait list right now, so getting into me is kind of rough. You're probably not going to get in. But if you get in my courses, I do a little bit of consults for them privately. But I have a long wait list right now for private care. But yeah, drrimka.com will take you to everything you need to know. We're trying to keep everything in one place. And
great. You heard it here.
Yeah, courses and my products would be awesome because seeing patients is a little bit different under these circumstances, and we've all had to change things up a little bit. So
yeah, so what better time? So get on there, check out her courses. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please give it 5 stars and subscribe to me on Beyond the Current Situation. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.